Om Sarvastarutu Durgani Sarvo Bhadrani Pashyatu Sarva Sadbuddhim Apnotu Sarva Sarvatra Nandatu. May all beings everywhere cross over the difficulties of life. May all see that which is noble and uplifting. May all attain to right understanding. May all beings everywhere rejoice in the truth. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Om peace, peace, peace be unto us all. So welcome to our program. I'm very glad to be with you, the devotees of Raleigh, plus some others from various places who have joined us. So it's a great joy to, even if I couldn't go physically, to be able to visit with you in this way. Last year I was at the center and delighted to meet devotees I did not know and to meet old friends as well. So this also is a good substitute for a physical visit, or the best substitute we can have right now. So I'm Swami Atmarupananda. I'm speaking from the Vedanta Society of Greater Houston, where I'm the resident minister. And just so you know a little bit about me, let me say that I joined the order in 1969 in Chicago under Swami Bhashyanandaji. He sent me to India in 1971 to get initiation from Swami Vireshwaranandaji, the president of the order at that time and a disciple of Holy Mother. And since that time, I've lived in a variety of places. I spent about 14 years altogether in India, not at one stretch for 7 years, another stretch recently for 5.5 years, from where I came here to Houston a couple of years ago. And like that, several other shorter periods of time, but about 14 years in India. And many years connected to the work in Southern California. So again, I'm delighted to be with you. And the topic of the talk tonight is how do we face present crises? The crises that we are, not crisis singular, but crises, because we are facing several crises now. So let me say, first of all, that I recognize for many people, this is an extremely difficult time. I hope it's not for many of you, but there are people who are suffering greatly. The people who are suffering because of the disease, the pandemic, directly because of the disease, they or their family members have contracted. People who are afraid of the disease, especially because they work on the front lines in healthcare and are exposed to the disease more than others. There are people, many of us, who have to live in some degree of isolation. And for some people, living in isolation means living in very, very difficult circumstances. Then there's the economic factor. So there's a pandemic with several different factors that can cause suffering. And then the economic hardship, which is immediately caused by the pandemic, but there are other causes as well. And so some people are facing extreme financial difficulties, unable to buy the necessities of life, unable to pay their rent. And then there's the general social unrest, the protests. Now, I'm not speaking against the protests at all. There's a time when protest is necessary. It's the only way that people can express their outrage at something which has become too much to bear. So I'm not speaking against it, but it does, the fact that there are protests, and sometimes the protests get out of hand on the police side, sometimes on the protesters' side, then it lends an air of instability to society. So again, I'm not speaking against that, it's just a fact. It's a fact. And then we see all around us the degeneration of the country and its ideals. And so all of these things have created a climate of fear, a climate of uncertainty, a climate of anxiety, etc. And so how do we face these circumstances? That's what I wish to talk about today. So I'm going to give you the simple answer first. If you study the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, the tradition is that the first 4 sutras contain all that you need to know. You don't need to study any more than the first 4 sutras, if that's enough. But if you study the first 4 and you don't attain enlightenment, then you study the first chapter. And if that's not enough, then you study all 4 chapters. And so similarly, if you study the Upanishads, if you study the Mahavakya, Tattvamasi, thou art that, for the highest person of highest spiritual fitness, the very rare person like a Ramakrishna, then that's enough. The teacher says, Tattvamasi, thou art that, and the disciple attains enlightenment, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, and that's the end of the story. But most of us can't do that. We hear Tattvamasi, and then we spend the rest of our life studying it and thinking about it and trying to figure it out. And so I'm going to give the simple answer to how to face crises, but then I will come back and fill out the picture in more detail, because most of us cannot be satisfied with a simple answer. Not because the simple answer isn't enough in itself, it is, but because we are not able to hear the simple answer and accept it in its simplicity and apply it without more explanation. So the simple answer, and it's not a simple answer in the sense that Tattvamasi, which expresses the very highest truth, or the first 4 sutras of Patanjali, which expresses the highest truth. So I'm not going to give you the highest truth. I'm going to give you a simple answer which is practicable, but even that is not enough for most of us. And so the simple answer is that we need to learn to pay attention to what's right in front of us and to do that which is in front of us to do. That's all we need to do to solve a crisis. There was one of our Swamis in Trabuco that I knew, Swami Bhadrananda. He was an Englishman, and he had been in the British Army in China when the Japanese invaded the part of China where he was at the beginning of World War II, before Pearl Harbor. And so at the beginning of World War II, before Pearl Harbor, he was captured by the Japanese. And he was put on the firing squad. Before the firing squad, he and other members of his band of soldiers were put on the firing squad. They were blindfolded, and they were lined up to be shot. And one of the Japanese soldiers noticed that he had a Red Cross armband on his arm, and asked through an interpreter, "Are you a medic?" And he said, "Yes, I'm a medic." And they said, "Then take him." So they picked him up, took off his blindfold, and that saved his life. Right then, all of the others were shot dead. But he was taken, and he spent the whole of World War II in a Japanese concentration camp. And so he had seen everything. And being a medic in World War II, in a concentration camp, again, he had been through everything. So when he was at Trabuco, once one of our young monks was cutting grass on a riding lawnmower and trying to cut along the side of a steep hill, a steep embankment. And it was too steep. And so the riding mower turned over and rolled down the hill with him on it, down to the bottom of the hill. And he was lying there with broken ribs in great pain. And the person who saw it went running for help. And everybody was so excited, they didn't know what to do. They were terrified. Didn't know, what to do other than just to call an ambulance. So they went and got Swami Bhadrananda, who had been a medic. And Swami Bhadrananda came, calmly looked at the situation, assessed it, and said, "This is needed, that's needed, that's needed. Go ahead and call the ambulance. You'll have to have this, that, and the other." And then that was that. But he handled it without any excitement whatsoever. And so that's what I hold in front of myself as an ideal. That if we can face every situation in life and just realize this is the situation, what do I need to do? What is the appropriate response? That's all I need to do in crisis or in ordinary times. Life presents us with circumstances, presents us with situations, and all we need to do is to learn how to respond by focusing on the situation itself and not getting excited. So along with that, we can't take on the whole world. That's where our problem comes from. We're faced with so many problems around the world. We see in the news, I just read an article about how China has moved the border with Nepal, taking over a village in Nepal just by moving the border, as if that were all that were necessary to take over territory. And of course it is if you're strong enough to push everybody out of the way. And so the things that are happening in Nepal, things that are happening in India, in Cambodia, in Australia, in Europe, in Russia, all of that comes to us and we feel overwhelmed. No, we have to learn. It doesn't mean that we should be uninformed. It means that we should know, what do I have to deal with? What is in front of me? What is the problem that I am confronting that I can deal with? And then that's all I need to do, because the world never gives me, meaning any of us, never gives me more than I can handle. I'll come back to that. But it's important, and I'll explain that more in a little bit, but it's important to understand that we can handle whatever comes to us. What we can't handle is our imagination of what might happen. That we can't happen because our imagination can throw up all kinds of scenarios and things that are just overwhelming. And then we are overwhelmed by the imagination. But if I stick to mindful attention to that which is right in front of me and just say, this is what I have to do right now. And even for my own individual life, if I think about all the things I have to do in the next 3 weeks, it all collapses into the present moment, and that also is overwhelming. I don't have to take care of all 3 weeks right now. I have this right in front of me. Let me take care of it. And then we find that life actually comes to us step by step, and it's manageable. It's the imagination and taking in too much that we don't need to take in that makes it unmanageable. We can't handle the whole world. We can handle our own experience. So that's the simple answer. Now let me come to the details. And I'm going to speak in terms of the actual crises that we are facing now, but the principles hold for whatever crisis we face, as I hope will be clear. So in order to make the talk less abstract and more concrete, I'll speak about present circumstances, but again, the principles are general. So one of the first things that people have to face nowadays, which is difficult, is fear. Fear is something that many people are dealing with. Fear of catching the virus, fear of loved ones catching the virus, especially people who are older, people who have underlying health conditions. That fear is greater because the danger is greater. And other sources of fear in the present circumstances. So what we have to understand, first of all, about fear is that there is natural fear and there is unnatural fear. Natural fear is not a problem. It's something that we have to deal with. Unnatural fear is our problem. What do I mean by natural and unnatural fear? If you are walking through the woods and you accidentally step on a snake and suddenly realize what you've done, you're going to be afraid. That's natural. You don't have to standing on the snake saying, well, why am I afraid? I'm a Vedantin, I shouldn't be afraid, and you continue standing on the snake. No. You jump out of the way as quick as you can and get away from it. So that's natural fear. You don't have to worry about trying to get rid of that kind of thing, which is a natural response to an immediate situation. You're stepping on a snake. You know the snake can be dangerous. You're not going to take out your pocket guide while you're still standing on it and look it up and see the pattern and see if that's a poisonous snake or not a poisonous snake. No, you see a snake, you get off of it. So that kind of fear is natural. You step out into the street to cross the street and suddenly a car honks and you realize that you didn't look both ways and you jump back. That's natural fear. If you didn't have that, you wouldn't jump back. And so that is not a problem. That saves your life. So this instinctive response to an immediate danger, that's not the fear that we have to fight. The fear we have to deal with is that fear which is unnatural, the fear which comes out of the imagination, the fear which comes out of projecting into the future what might happen. It hasn't happened, but it might happen. That is unnatural fear, and that is the problem. Why did Swami Vivekananda speak so often about fear and fearlessness? He says that he said about weakness and about fear, that these two are the greatest source of our problems. He said that the one word from the Upanishads, which he liked the most, was the one word abhi, be fearless, fearlessness, abhayam, fearlessness, because it's out of fear that we do all of the wrong things that we do. It's out of fear that we become small and become weak. And so he emphasized the need for strength, not just strength of the muscles. Yes, take care of the body, but he wasn't talking about bodybuilding, taking steroids in order to develop big muscles and anything like that. No, take care of your body, take care of your mind, keep the body strong for you. What is strong for you may not be strong for another person because of different body types, but keep the body strong in terms of your own physiology, keep your mind strong, but mainly keep the will and your intelligence strong. That is the inner person, the integrity of your person. Keep that strong. And don't succumb to imaginary fears. It's often said, I don't remember the exact quote, but something like, the average person dies 1 million deaths every day, but the hero dies only once. That is, the average person is afraid of so many things. We spend our life in fear, but the hero faces even actual death heroically. And so doesn't die before he dies because of fearlessness. And so we have to learn how to overcome fear. So how do we overcome fear? That's a big topic, but in simple terms, it's through faith. Through faith, we can overcome fear. There's the strength which allows us to face a cannon, which allows us to face the battlefield and so forth. Oftentimes that is based on bravado, but real strength and real fearlessness comes from faith. And faith in three things. One is, and Swami Vivekananda put this first, before all other faiths, faith in myself. Faith that within me is the power to face everything that comes to me in life. I have within me the power of the universe. And I can, if I only learn how, I can face every situation in life. So faith in myself, my ability to face life. Second is faith in the universe itself. That is, to know that the universe is not against me. The universe is not trying to get me. That's our biggest fear, source of fear, is that we feel somehow that the universe is trying to get me. It's trying to do me in. It's trying to destroy me. No, the universe is not. That's the very law of karma, which says every experience that comes to me, I have brought on myself, and there's a reason why it's coming to me. That is, the secret inner meaning of the law of karma is that the universe of your experience is your own universe of self-creation. And every experience that comes to you for a reason. And that is a good reason, either to balance out your past karma or to teach you something which you didn't learn in the past. So learn to look at the universe as a reflection of your own past karma. The universe as it comes to you. The universe comes to each one of us individually in our own customized way. And so learn to have faith that the universe is bringing to you what you need because of your own karma. It's what you actually need. Don't think of karma as reward and punishment, because then you think, well, what did I do that I'm getting punished now? No, it's not. Reward and punishment is a very minor part of karma. The important part is the karma brings to you that which you need, either what you need to learn or that which is needed to balance something inside of yourself from past actions. And so you take it and you learn from every experience that comes to you. So faith in yourself, faith in the universe, and of course, faith in God, faith in the divine providence, faith that there is a all-loving heart at the heart of the universe. It may not seem like it at some time, but that is why we practice prayer and worship, because by practicing prayer, worship, meditation, japa, etc., we gradually develop a living relationship with the all-loving heart of the universe. And then we begin to feel that that loving heart of the universe loves me without any qualification, loves me not because of what I do, loves me not because what I have made out of myself, loves me not because I do good things or whatever, but loves me just because I am, because it's the nature of that loving heart, the mother heart of the universe, to love. And I am part of that being itself. I belong to that being. And so there's a natural and irrevocable relationship of love between the heart of the universe and me. So faith in myself, faith in the universe that it's not out to destroy me, and faith in God. So in that way we can overcome fear. So another problem, and I'll go through the other things a little more quickly, but fear is one of the big things we have to face. Another thing that causes a lot of trouble for people today is the relative isolation. Some people are actually alone because they don't have a spouse, don't have children living with them or a parent living with them. They're isolated, and because of social distancing and everything and fear of the disease, they live alone. So isolation is a problem for many. So one thing is, and even relative isolation, maybe just husband and wife living together, not able to communicate much with people outside. Or mother and child, whatever, one or two people left to themselves, that kind of isolation. So one thing is that we need to learn how to utilize isolation. For someone like me, who's been a monk for 51 years now, I love isolation. But I realize that it's very difficult for people who haven't practiced it, because we don't know what to do with ourselves when we're alone. So take this as nature giving you an opportunity to learn how to enjoy your own company, how to learn to make use of your own company and your own time. So first of all, even if it's uncomfortable, look on it as an opportunity to get familiar with yourself. And many people have written, both jokingly and seriously, that now for the first time they're really getting to know their husbands or wives or children and so forth, because they're stuck with them all the time. They don't have distractions. So learn in the same way to get used to yourself. Learn to accept yourself. Don't be a super judge of yourself. Learn to accept yourself. This is the raw material we have to make our life out of. And so don't reject the raw material you have. This is what we have. So make the use of this, the raw material, just as a potter takes wet and cold, sticky clay and makes a beautiful pot out of it. So don't reject this, because this is what you have. So learn to feel self-accepting. Then learn to feel connected, even if you are by yourself. That is, by sending out thoughts of goodwill to others, thinking well of others, praying for others. That will immediately give you a sense, and not an artificial, made-up, imaginary sense, but a real sense of being connected to others. if you connect your thoughts and your heart to others by wishing well, by praying for others. And then you can also actually connect by lifting the telephone, by having a face-to-face meeting over the internet and so forth. And so learn to accept your own company, enjoy your own company, utilize your own company, then learn to connect through wishing well to all beings, and then actually connect. You don't have to be in physical contact in order to connect nowadays. So, fear, isolation, then the possibility of sickness and death. If sickness and death actually come to us, may we be free from that, but if they come also, either sickness or sickness ending in death, we can handle that also. How do I know that we can handle it? Because every single person in the history of the world has handled it. Everyone has handled it. There's no one who lived before, who's not here now, who didn't die. So we also can handle that. We have all sorts of imaginations of death and being parted from all of this that we love and people that we love and everything. It comes to every one of us. And when it comes, if we have thought about it, if we prepared our minds rather than trying to hide from it, we'll be able to face it. Everyone has faced it. And even if we do hide from it until it catches us unawares, even then we will be able to handle it. All of us have experienced sickness. Some of us have experienced serious sickness, and yet we're still here. And so sickness we can face, death we can face if that also comes. Not that we should hasten it, but if it comes, then we can face it. So don't let the fear of sickness and death rule your life now. Protect yourself, stay healthy as far as you can, be careful, be safe, but in spite of that, if sickness comes, and in spite of taking care while you're sick to get well, it doesn't work, and you find yourself dying, we can handle both. And so we shouldn't live in the fear of these two things. Yes, take care, take caution, precaution, that's natural, but we shouldn't live in fear of these things. Everyone in world history has faced this. Billions of people over the history of the world. We too will face it necessarily someday. So whether it comes today or comes in 10 years or 50 years, when it comes, we will be able to handle it. So don't worry that you can't handle it. You can. Another problem I mentioned in the list of crises now is people who are stuck in bad circumstances. People where it means that staying at home means that they're staying in a home which is not a good place, not a safe place. That's a real problem. That's not an imaginary problem. That's a real problem. If staying at home means staying in an abusive environment, then that is a real problem. And so if that is the case for anyone, then we should seek help. We should seek help because that is a real problem. It's a serious problem. And so we should take action. Action means the best thing in a situation like that, if one is in an abusive situation, is to seek help. Not to be afraid of seeking help. Not to be afraid that, well, because my community is very conservative and they won't understand. No. There are times when you just have to seek help, no matter what other people say and what other people's expectations of you are. There's a time for bearing, for being patient, for bearing, for forbearing and all of that. We have to have that capacity in life. But if the situation is serious, then we have to seek help. So that's a real problem. And also, besides seeking help, to learn to pray. Prayer can always help in any circumstance. Another problem, economic hardship. Many people are faced with economic hardship. First of all, be sure that your problem is real, that it's not the worries of a millionaire who just lost $10 million and only has 100 million left. So that's not a real problem. Swami Vivekananda tells the story of somebody that was reported in the newspapers, an Italian man who was worth many millions of dollars. And in those days, $1 million was enough to make a person comfortable for their whole life. They never had to worry about anything. $1 million was a huge fortune in those days. So this man had gotten down to his last $10 million through profligate expenses and leading the life of a playboy. And when he realized he only had $10 million left, he committed suicide because he couldn't face poverty. So first of all, be sure that the problem is real. And if it is real, that is a real problem. If you're having trouble paying rent, if you're having trouble buying groceries, if you're having trouble supporting your family and so forth, that's a serious problem. And then also we need to do what we can do. And there also, one of the things to do is to seek help, to seek out, find out about resources available, find out people who can help also. So again, there are problems which are many of these are real problems, and then we need to do something to figure out what can I do, who can help. And in that circumstance also, economic hardship, you need to seek help and do what you can do, but also pray and surrender to God. Also pray and surrender. In all circumstances, there's something that we can do and that we should do. At the same time, we should pray and surrender to God. That is in all circumstances. And then there was there's the problem I mentioned of social disintegration. I mentioned that because of the both the protests and sometimes the riots, and on the side of the police, sometimes on the side of protesters, the general problem in the country right now of the country seeming to lose its way and losing its ideals, the things which, whether those of you who are immigrants, the things that you loved when you first came, or those of you who grew up here and that you took for granted, those things that made America America, many of those seem to be threatened right now. And I should say, don't seem, they are threatening America right now. That is also a real problem. So how should we face this crisis when it's in society? And society is this huge thing with gigantic social dynamics taking place, where we're just an individual. What can we do in the face of the huge dynamics, the waves that are passing through history, where we don't seem to have power in the face of those things? So one thing is a question of understanding. First, we have to have some understanding. And one of the things that helps me in the present crisis a great deal, or the present social crisis, the disintegration of the country and its ideals. Swami Advaitananda, the oldest of the monastic disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, he had a vision long after Sri Ramakrishna had passed away. And in this vision, he saw Sri Ramakrishna coming down the road towards him, walking down a road towards him. And he was holding on his shoulder a gada, that is the military mace, meaning the club that was used in military warfare in olden days. So he was holding on his shoulder this big military club. And Swami Advaitananda said, Thakur, what is this? And he said, I am Gadadhar, come to destroy the old so that the new can come up. So that takes a little explanation for those of you who are not very familiar with the life of Ramakrishna. First of all, Gadadhar is a name of Vishnu, and it means the one who bears the mace, the military club. So Gadadhar is a form of Vishnu where he's holding the military mace. And Sri Ramakrishna's father, when Sri Ramakrishna, before he was born, before his father even knew that his wife was pregnant, he went to Gaya in Bihar to make offerings to the ancestors in the Shraddha ceremony. Hindus throughout India often wish to go to Gaya at some point in their life in order to make offerings to their ancestors. The temple is famous for that purpose. So Kshudiram, the father of Sri Ramakrishna, had gone there and made offerings to the ancestors, fulfilling his heart's desire. And at night, sleeping in the temple, he had a vision in which he went to sleep, and in the sleep he had a vision in which he saw the living Gadadhara in place of the image in the temple. He was in the vision he saw the temple, but in place of the image he saw the living Gadadhara. And the image of Vishnu said to him, Kshudiram, I want to be born as your son. And so it was after that, when Kshudiram returned home, he found that his wife was pregnant, and he realized that a great soul was to be born to him, that this was a blessing of Gadadhara. So when Ramakrishna was born, he gave him the name Gadadhara. So you have all of these connections. The birth of the very conception of Sri Ramakrishna, the blessing of Gadadhara, the name Gadadhar, and now in the vision, Swami Untitled sees Gadadhar, Sri Ramakrishna walking with the mace, saying, I am Gadadhar, come to destroy the old so that the new can come up. Destroying the old, why? Because otherwise the new can't come up. Swami Vivekananda said that with the birth of Sri Ramakrishna, the Satya Yuga had begun. Now you may think, if you look around and see the world now, not just America, but all over the world, you say, this isn't much of a Satya Yuga. It looks like either Swamiji was mistaken or else Satya Yuga is not so great as I thought it was. No, the problem is that Swamiji saw that with Sri Ramakrishna's birth, the process had begun of the transformation of the Satya Yuga. The Satya Yuga is taking birth, but it can't take full birth until the old collapses. And what happens when the old begins to collapse? All of us try to put it back together again, because that's all that we know. And so we become frantic in our efforts to put the old back together again. And that's why when there's a transition from one era to another era, one age to another age, then sometimes we see the massive crumbling of the old. But those who have eyes to see begin to see the growing of something new. And so those of us who are devotees of Sri Ramakrishna, we shouldn't take this in an exclusive sense. This is open to anyone. But we, because we know Sri Ramakrishna, we've studied his life. I studied Swami Vivekananda. We know that the Satya Yuga is coming. And so when the old begins to collapse, that's nothing to weep over. Nothing to weep over. Yes, it will cause social dislocation. It will cause some suffering for many people for some time, because we're attached to the old and we try to hold on to it even though it's crumbling in our hands. But for those of us who have faith, we look to the new, the birth of the new, and hold on to that, because that is coming. When we look at India and see the problems in India, sometimes it looks like the social problems and political problems and so forth in India are insurmountable. No, Swami Vivekananda said that he could see that the giant is awakening, as he called India. The great giant is awakening, and nothing can stop her now, he said. He said that the future of India will outshine all of India's past glory. That in comparison with the future, the past will look feeble indeed. That the future is brighter even than the past glory of India. And so, yes, that doesn't mean that, okay, we can go to sleep, we don't need to do anything, but it means, no, we work, do what we do with the faith. That yes, India is rising, it's going to rise. Right now, India is threatened by China, threatened by Pakistan. Now the relationship with Bangladesh has suddenly soured. And so there are all of these problems, and then internal problems of various types, and separatist movements and all kinds of things. And if we look at all of that, then we can easily lose hope. No, don't lose hope. We need to do that which we can do, help where we can help, but with the faith that the glory of India is assured, because Swami Vivekananda saw it. So that, what does that do for us? It means I don't need to fear anything. America, Swami Vivekananda gave his best years to America. So can America just be destroyed and fall apart? No, because he loved the ideals for which America stood. He realized that America had not lived up to its ideals, but he realized that the ideal was good, and he put it on a spiritual foundation. So here also, we don't need to be afraid. We need to do that which needs to be done right in front of us, but we don't need to do that with fear and anxiety, because the future is ahead of us, and the future is good. Swami Vivekananda loved the whole world and said that the ideas of Sri Ramakrishna would spread over the world and bring new life to the whole world, a new spirit of harmony. That's not here yet. No, it's not. But you see signs of it everywhere. And so there also let us work for the welfare of the world silently, quietly, without anxiety, without worry, realizing that the future is on our side. The future meaning not my side, Swami Atmarupananda. No, who cares for that? Our side means the side of Sri Ramakrishna, the Holy Mother, Swami Vivekananda. Holy Mother said that Swami Vivekananda was the incarnation of Bharata. Bharata meaning India. That Swamiji was the incarnation of India itself. And so who can hold India back now? Yes, there may be all sorts of trials, tribulations, challenges, difficulties, struggles, but the future is ahead of us, and so there's nothing to fear. So in conclusion, let me just say once again that the answer to how to face crises in general is very simple. Just take life one moment at a time. Do that which is in front of you. Don't worry about all of the possible things. Even if you like to stay informed, that's good, that's fine. Because if you have to vote, if you have to work in society, you have to deal with people, you need to have an awareness of what's going on. But don't let that awareness overwhelm you. Realize that, yes, I'm aware of the whole situation, but what I have to take care of is right in front of me. That's all I have to take care of. Yes, there are things the things that where I can help in bigger situations. I can contribute to causes, and I can give my time, volunteer for various causes that are not right in front of me, but bigger things. That's good, but do that because you can do it. Don't do it because you're scared to death. No, make your contribution to the world a free contribution, because you know that the future is bright. It's not bleak. Whatever difficulties we have to go through, and yes, we have to go through difficulties. Every one of us, everyone here in our group here tonight, everyone has been through so many difficulties in life. Look at how many difficulties you've gone through. How many times you thought, oh, I can't deal with this. This is too much for me. No, this is too much. I can't do it. You did it. You did it, and you're here. And so, yes, difficulties may come, but difficulties have already come. That's nothing new. And so to take life one step at a time, do what is right in front of us. Don't take on the whole world, because that we can't solve. Do that which is given to you to do. And then know that God's promise is true. The promise that Jesus gave in the New Testament, the promise that Allah gives in the Quran, the promise that Sri Krishna gives in the Gita, the promise that Sri Ramakrishna gave to his devotees, the promise that all great incarnations of God have given to people, that I will protect you. I will protect you. If you give your heart to me, and I will be your shield, I will be your protector. That's all we have to do. Of course, the question comes, then is God partial? He takes care of me because I gave my heart to him, but he doesn't care about those who didn't give their heart. No, God is ready to protect all. But by giving our heart to God, then our mind becomes free. And then we are able to recognize and to see the help that God is giving us. Otherwise, we don't see it, we don't recognize it, we just spend our life in a mass of anxiety. So learn to give your heart to God the best that you can. Little by little, learn to turn your heart towards God, because God's promise is true. Jesus says, take up your cross and follow me. My cross is light, my burden is light. And so with Sri Krishna, the promises he gave, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja. Give up everything else and just give your heart to me, and I will take care of you. I will take you to the other shore of life. That God gives that promise, the scriptures give that promise, the incarnations give that promise. So the promise is true. So in that faith in myself, faith in the world, that the world is only a reflection of myself, and it's giving me what I need, and faith in God, who supports the whole. There's me, there's the world, and then there's God, which is the whole repository of both the world and the self. So with that, I will end my talk and turn it over to question and answer. If any of you have any questions, I'll be glad to try